All right, it is Wednesday night. It is 7 o'clock, and y'all know what time it is. It's time for another conversation with Cougars. And I know you guys recognize this gentleman who's my guest tonight. Braxton, BJ Chitty, quarterback, Troy. Now he owns his own business in Dothan, and we're going to get into all that good stuff. BJ, thank you for making some time for me tonight. I'm so glad that you and I are going to be able to chat for a little while. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. Almost all my days are good days, especially when I get to talk
Yeah,
to Cougars. We
yes,
may
sir.
not have
Yes.
played, I may have played way before you, but my friend, there are a lot of commonalities that we both share. And most notably, that we come from the same high school. And that's why we're doing these conversations. Unfortunately, our school is no longer, but we're keeping the memories and the program alive with conversations like this. And we have former players, cheerleaders, coaches, administrators, managers, trainers, you name it, anybody, people in the band, people who were part of the program. We're trying to have them on Wednesday nights, and you played an important role during your years. But before we go back to the good old days, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself and your family and what you're doing these days professionally, and then we'll get started.
Um, I grew up right here in Dothan.
Mhm.
From the time I was born until I went off to college, I attended Northview from 2006 to 2010. I graduated with a full ride to Troy. While at Troy, I had my first child, Kylie. Ended up having two more, Bryson and Carter. I graduated from Troy back in 2014. Me and Larry went out the same year. Um, Let me see. I started teaching back in 2016. I taught school around here for 3 years. I taught at Cottonwood High School for 2 years in Dothan High, where I was the head boys basketball coach. Um, and when they combined the schools, a lot of us got laid off, and I started going. I started doing landscaping full time.
Well, I know that I bet that was interesting teaching at Dothan High for a Northview grad, or was it difficult or weird, or it was just
Uh,
a job?
I mean, I just saw it as an opportunity to help kids that don't necessarily know about the adult life.
Mhm,
Um, it was different to say the most, especially from Cottonwood.
mhm.
But I enjoyed it overall. The kids enjoyed me being there, and we had a great time while I was there.
Now, with you coaching basketball, did you coach against Coach Fleming when he was at Northview?
Yes, sir, I did. I got the opportunity. I actually got the opportunity to coach against them at Cottonwood as well.
Okay, I didn't realize the schools had played. Okay.
Yeah, we ended up playing in a tournament against each other. But yes, I actually did get. They made a big hype about that, and it was a big deal. But I enjoyed it. He's like a mentor to me.
Mhm.
He has always been there when I needed him. All I got to do is call him.
And he's such a great resource, and he's been that way for many, many years. And now he's really known for being such an experienced and well-known high school coach. But what folks don't realize or don't remember is back in the day when he was in high school at Dothan High,
Yes,
he
sir.
could ball out. He was a player, and I hope you get to see some film on him if you hadn't before. Woo,
Oh, yes,
he was
sir.
special. He was special.
Yeah, we kind of our whole coaching thing kind of turned out the same. He ended up going to Dothan. I went to Northview.
Mhm,
We both went to Troy,
mhm,
and we ended up coming back coaching for two separate schools. So
mhm. A lot of similarities right there. That's for
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
But Janansky, he's already had his day with Cougars, so we're gonna move on from him. We're gonna talk
Gotcha,
about
gotcha, gotcha.
all right. We know that you've got a very busy business, particularly this time of the year.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you making some time. I'm sure you're a little tired, so we're not going to keep you too long. But excuse me, let's back up a little bit. What neighborhood did you grow up in Dothan?
I grew up right off of Flynn Road. It's off of Den, right behind. Well, not right behind, but kind of behind North Side, not North Side Walmart.
Mhm.
Um, my mom actually still lives over there to this day. And my riding buddies from back then, Joe Kyle, shout out to Joe. He actually played with me at Northview as well. Justin Johnson, who also played with me at Northview. Um, but I had a beautiful neighborhood. You never have to worry about people kidnapping your kids or the police coming through. It was a great neighborhood and still is to this day.
Now, most of us growing up, I'm a good bit older than you. We've already established that. But growing up, you knew it was time to come in either when the street lights came on in the neighborhood or when mama rang the bell
Oh yeah.
or something like that. Now, how did you know when it was time to get in the house?
Hey, it's just the street light for me. It's the street light for sure. You hear it flickering.
Now, talk to us a little bit about what games we used to play. Everything in the yards. We'd play football and a tree was a touchdown and this was out of bounds, or we'd play our version of baseball using a tennis racket and a sock wrapped in tape in the side yard. Something like that. What was your game? What did y'all play?
And see, I learned how to play football in the street actually. And I guess you could say that's where your footing come from, because if you slip, you'll skin yourself up. But I actually learned how to play football, how to shake, how to throw, and we had 2 light poles that sit in the front of my mom's house. And one end was the touchdown. They're probably about 25, 30 yards apart. And man, we had a blast just right there in my front yard.
When was the last time you went by that yard and saw that and it clicked in your mind? Man, those were some times.
Every day. Look, I go see my mom every single day.
Every time I come to Dothan, which is not often enough, I ride by my childhood home and I can still point out in my mind that bush or that tree or that part of the yard.
Absolutely.
It takes me back to those childhood memories, and that's fun stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, all these guys that you're naming that you're running around buddies from the neighborhood, are those the same guys you play ball with in the neighborhood?
Oh, yes, sir. We were all spaced out. I had a friend across the street. His name is Kobe Evans. He was going to Dothan High. I don't know how that worked out, but he would come out and play. It wasn't about 4 of us. We didn't have much, and we had a small, nice neighborhood.
And which middle school did you go to?
My 6th grade year, I went to Girard. That's where I played for 7th and 8th grade. But I ended up at Carver. We just had to play ball at Girard because Carver didn't have a football team.
I see. I too went to Girard for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I don't know if you guys practiced on the field behind the school.
Absolutely.
And tell me if you can relate to this, even though we are many years apart. No grass, all rocks, glass, and it was not level anywhere.
Yes. Concrete pavement. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But I mean, I think they still do that to this day.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's what it's all about. And that's where you make some of those middle school memories and start working on your moves. And let's talk about that transition coming over to Northview. Wait, before we get to that, when you were in middle school and coming up and learning the sport, who did you pattern your game after? Who were some of your sports idols? And we'll stick with football for now, but talk to us a little bit about your sports idols and whose game really did you like to pattern?
I was a big Michael Vick fan at the time. Just the way he handled his offense from a quarterback standpoint, throwing, running. He was just a threat every time he touched the field, and that's what I wanted to be.
Well, he's certainly on the field. I'll leave those off the field issues alone for tonight, but on the field, he was about as good as they get. Now, I want you to tell me, is there a family relationship between you and Damon Glasgow?
Yes, there is.
Tell me the family relationship before I tell you the comment.
Well, it goes way. His mom and my mom actually worked together, retired from the same place. But we're cousins on down the line. We always be at the same family reunion. I can't exactly tell you where it's intertwined at.
You just know your family somehow.
Yes, for sure.
Well, I can't really read exactly what he wrote because my eyes are not working tonight, but I think he says you're the greatest athlete in the family. So we'll just leave it at that.
I want to say all that.
We'll just leave it at that. Is that right, Damon? Well, anyway, so Michael Vick was your sports hero. Well, I wouldn't say hero. That's who you patterned your game after.
Absolutely.
What about when you were in middle school? Did you go to the Dothan, the Northview, Cottonwood, any of the high school games on Friday nights? And were you checking out players that you really wanted to maybe pattern some of your game after those guys who you saw?
See, my mom was a Abbeville Yellow Jacket, so most of my childhood for like Friday night games and Saturday Pee Wee games, I was at Abbeville. So I watched a lot of Abbeville games back in the day. I mean, I probably went to one or two Northview games, but for the most part, I was going to the Abbeville games when they played home.
And when you got to Northview, who was your coach the years you played at football at Northview?
The first 3 years I had Chip Harris was the head coach. My last year I had Wayne White.
Okay. And do you know Coach LeBron Stewart?
Oh, yes, absolutely. He's one of
you know what he did this past year in Abbeville, don't you?
Absolutely. I witnessed it myself.
Ooh, he's got a good program there. And he's been on our show, and we certainly wish the 2A Coach of the Year lots of luck, and hopefully he has another great season.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. So you played for Coach Chip Harris, who's been on the show, and you played for Coach Wayne White, who I hadn't gotten to yet. Coach Janaski Fleming just chimed in, says, multi-sport athlete, heck of a career. Amen to that.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Well, let's talk about coming to Northview. Did you know what sports you wanted to play? Did you automatically know that you wanted to play sports? I mean, I'm just assuming because of the career that you had, but sometimes guys have to be talked into it or convinced they need to be playing certain sports.
Well, coming in, I was always a baseball guy. I talked baseball from the time I was 5. That's what me and my mama had set out for me to do, was play baseball. And then when I turned 10, football became a thing because in the city, you couldn't play until you were 10 years old at the time. And I ended up the year they went to 9 years old, I got to play, and I also got to play basketball. Basketball was just a sport I enjoyed playing. I was just a good athlete playing basketball. But then football came about, and it was from the first time I touched the ball in the first game I played in. That's all she wrote.
Well, that's before we get to that. I suspect you use basketball to keep you in shape in between sports, plus hanging out with your friends on the play and just getting to play for fun.
Yeah, and staying out of trouble.
Well, that too.
Absolutely.
That too. Let's talk about baseball. When you played for the city, which ward or which part of the city did you play for?
I am a Westgate guy, baseball, football, and basketball. That was our leisure service of choice.
And how young were you when you started over there? Did you get to play on Beecham Field or Gilbert? Any of those fields?
Absolutely. T-ball, yes, sir.
Those are my fields too. I played in Ward 4.
We made some history over there. I won 2 city championships. I want to say a run-up. I won 1 run-up on the next one, down with Chris Maddox and who I had, John McCann?
Was Chris your coach?
Yes.
Chris is one of my childhood buddies and still one of my closest friends today.
Yeah, we ran some baseball teams away now.
I got a story. It doesn't involve me, but do you remember in Sports Illustrated, and I don't know if they still do it, but do you remember Faces in the Crowd? Do you remember ever seeing that where an amateur athlete, whether you're middle school, high school, or college, you do something extraordinary and then somebody submits it and Sports Illustrated will put about 10 of them in an episode, and it may say James Joyce from Dothan, Alabama hit 4 home runs and had 15 RBIs in a Little League game in Dothan, Alabama. Did you ever see those?
I can't remember.
Well, what I just described happened back in between mine and your years at Beecham Field. I was there the night that he hit 4. This guy, I think it was James Joyce or maybe his brother Walter, hit 4 home runs and had 14 or 15 RBIs in a Little League game. And it made it into Sports Illustrated. Well, anyway, history being made at Westgate Park back in the day. That's right.
Big time.
Well, let's move on to ninth grade and transitioning over to the big school. You knew you were going to play football, and talk to us a little bit about what you remember that first year. Who was your ninth grade coach?
Our head coach, I know we had Jason Neal. He was not the head coach, but we had Jason Neal, and I cannot remember who my ninth grade head football coach was.
Now, you're not that old. We're not going to let you off that easy. It'll come back to you.
I think it was Coach Childers.
Okay. And did they have you playing quarterback, or were you moving around to different spots?
No, I played quarterback. From the time I was in seventh grade, we knew I was going to be throwing the ball for a couple years at least.
You know how they decided who was going to be the quarterback my ninth grade year at Northview?
How?
The coaches gave us all the football and said, throw it as far as you can. I out-threw everybody. I became quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, that was that back in the day before this arm got bad. That was pretty easy.
That's right. That's right. What did you run a lot of different offenses? Did you throw it, run it? What were y'all doing back in ninth grade, trying to get your talents out there?
Chip ran the spread. He ran the number system. So that's what we were doing on ninth grade. We basically imitated everything they were doing on varsity, just dumbed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So all the zone reads, small packages like hitches and slants, goes every now and then. Basically, we lived on the zone read. Give me a triple option.
Now, when you were in ninth grade, where did you guys practice? Back in my day, we were down in what is now the softball field, down in that pit, and it was horrible down there. There was no grass, anything. Where'd y'all practice?
We practice where the practice field is now. It's like a little field off to the side, closer to the driveway road going towards the light on Westgate.
Okay, so y'all were up on the same level as the main practice field.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, y'all had it easy. Y'all had wind. We had no wind down there. But when you were at practice and you were going through whatever it is, and you glanced over at the varsity field, and who was some of those quarterbacks ahead of you?
You had Sterling Wimbush and Joe Coachman.
Some pretty good athletes right there. Now, did you ever get to practice as a ninth grader? Did you practice with the varsity or JV at all?
I practiced with the JV. I played with JV as well, and I actually got a few snaps on varsity my ninth grade year.
Excellent. At quarterback?
At quarterback, yes, sir.
And what was that like? You remember who it was and how you felt going into the huddle, or did y'all huddle back then?
No, we ran straight spread. We went off wristbands, but I can't remember who it was, but I know I was scared. I was scared. I graduated high school at 175 pounds. So I wasn't.
In ninth grade, how much did you weigh?
Whew, I can't.
Soaking wet, 145?
I probably about 160.
160, okay, that's okay.
Yeah, because I've been 6'2" since ninth grade, so
you were skinny back in ninth grade.
Oh, I was skinny in 12th grade.
Yeah, but I bet you put on some muscle, lifting some weights and just getting bigger, growing a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Great. Absolutely. But take us to that first varsity action. I know you were scared. We were all scared. And I can remember being in the huddle for the very first time, looking up at the older linemen, like, all right, what you got? And I'm just like, oh man. And I specifically remember reversing the call that came in from, we used to run the plays in and out with wide receivers. None of the hand signals or the wristbands. It was old time. They would run it in. He'd tell me the play and then I'd repeat it in the huddle. But I reversed it. And when you reverse it, it makes no sense. And they're looking at you like, and you're looking back at them. You heard what I said. Let's go do it. Anyway, what was it like for you? You guys had wristbands. You probably didn't have to say anything except look at your play. Everybody knew what it was, but that doesn't mean that it's all focused. You're all clear up here.
Oh yeah. I got my first start in 10th grade. Back then, that's just, man, all I wanted to do was play football. So I can't even tell you I was scared in 10th grade. I had set a goal for myself. I couldn't be stopped when I touched the field. That's how I felt. kind of like a cocky attitude. If I knew what I knew now,
Mhm.
I would have kind of slacked up a little bit. Attitude would have been a little different.
How? How?
Um, I wouldn't say I was a hothead, but I was a know-it-all.
Mhm.
I
Now,
took
let me pause you right there. Were you a know-it-all when it came to the coaches teaching you and coaching you up, or were you a know-it-all to your fellow players? Because there's a big difference in my mind, and we'll talk about that.
a little bit of both. Young and just not mature at the time.
Okay. You had confidence as an athlete, but you hadn't caught up maturity wise, is what you're saying when you were in 10th grade.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
how did that hurt you as a player in 10th grade?
It probably hurt me more than I can give it recognition for. But
Mhm.
like I said, growing up, understanding how this world works, I would have definitely did a lot of things differently.
Oh, BJ, we all would have. Don't beat yourself up, but we all would. That's
Oh
maturity.
yeah,
That's high
absolutely.
school. But I want to know about the interaction. Who was your QB coach in 10th grade?
In 10th grade, I had Josh Parrish. Well, Coach Harris was our QB coach for 9th and 10th grade, and then I got Brad McCoy my junior year, and then my senior year I had Josh Parrish.
And then when you guys were running the offense, did you go through the OC, the quarterback coach, or the head coach? How did those dynamics play out during the game?
Basically, my position coach. I mean, would it been a 6A school? It's kind of hard to get your head coach in one position without him, because he's worried about the game and the flow of the action, and he
Yeah.
really ain't got time. That's why he hires assistants.
Mhm. Now, let's talk about that maturity. I want you to compare your 10th grade version versus your 12th grade version. Had you matured in those couple of years and all of that game experience? And how was that any different for you by the time you were a senior?
On the field, definitely matured. We were young my senior year.
Mhm.
I mean, my starting receivers were basically all 10th graders.
Mhm.
I had a transfer in the backfield with me, and then I had DT who had been with me since 9th grade.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the maturity level, I still could have, of course, worked on some things as a senior as well. I knew I was going off to play ball, and it kind of got to my head a little bit
Mhm.
because I got recruited early,
Mhm.
real early. So it kind of went to me just a little
You
bit
know,
anyway.
getting to start for 3 years, and by the time you're coming into your senior year, particularly at a high profile school like ours, you're going to make some headlines and folks are going to notice you, particularly at quarterback.
Yes,
When
sir.
did Troy or other programs start contacting you, and when did you commit to Troy?
Troy actually came on pretty late. I guess they thought I was going to go to a bigger school because I had committed to Auburn back in '08.
Mhm.
And when they fired Tuberville, I decommitted with intentions of going to Alabama.
Mhm.
But it never fell through business wise, I guess. And at the end of the recruiting process, I had Troy and UAB,
Mhm.
and I ended up picking Troy.
Mhm. Back in that time, who was the UAB head coach, if you remember? Who was recruiting you?
Neil Calloway, I think, was the head coach at the time.
Okay, I think by that point, Watson Brown was no longer the UAB coach.
No, sir.
I don't know if you remember Watson Brown, but he used to be the Vanderbilt coach. He actually was my head coach and recruited me to Vanderbilt. So
Oh,
there's a
wow.
little bit of a connection there. Now, even one more connection. His quarterbacks coach during my years at Vanderbilt and one of the assistants at UAB is Coach Rick Christoffel. Coach Christoffel is the tight ends coach for the Buccaneers right now.
Oh,
So
wow.
he had a pretty good season and got to coach up a future Hall of Famer in Gronkowski. So that's pretty cool for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of your better memories, some of your favorite memories about being a Cougar, and what did it mean to you? What did it mean to you about representing our school back then?
Um, I was the fun-go-lucky guy. I mean, I didn't get in too much trouble. I just wanted to have fun back in those days. You know, I was young, living, I ain't gonna say a rock star life, but it was pretty awesome
Mhm.
to say the least. The school loved me, and I love that school back. From the principals to the assistant principals to the teachers, I enjoyed it, man. I can't say nothing bad about my high school.
You know, it's when you're known for what you do on the field or the court, when you have success as an athlete in a town like Dothan, you're going to be recognized as such. And
Yes,
you
sir.
can take it one of two ways. You can be a total a-hole, you can be a jerk, and you can just not pay attention to anybody else except your specific people. And you can be a jerk about that.
Yes,
And
sir.
people remember that. But that's not the way you were. You and I didn't know each other, but I knew of you back in the day. And I also knew more about you off the field than on the field. And your reputation was stellar. And that's one of the key things that I think that when I think of you, of course, about what you played and how well you did as an athlete, even being a better man. And I know that's one of the things that you're describing now pretty humbly. I know that at times when you were talking about that maturity coming through, that you've learned, as we all do, it's just the maturity process of
Yeah,
being
it
an
takes time.
athlete
Process.
and coming through high school. I get it. I was there once, but it's your legacy about being a good man. And I think that what you just described, how well the school loved you and you loved the school, it's mutual. And that says a lot about your character. And I'm sure that says a lot about the way your mama raised you. So
Oh, yes.
I hope that that brings you a smile sometimes when you think about that.
Oh, yes, it does. Absolutely.
Well, let's go on the field. I want you to tell me about one or two. It could be an interception you threw and you had to go run down the defender. It could be a big throw. I don't care what it is. Tell me a couple of good memories that still bring smiles to you.
Um, Johnny Falk can vouch for this one.
Mhm,
Uh, the first offensive play, he was coaching down at Smith Station.
mhm.
I go up the sideline for about 60 yards. I get caught on like the 11-yard line. But the first offensive play from scrimmage for us down the sideline, my 11th grade year. So back in 2008.
Mhm,
And then I have another one, Enterprise back in 2007,
mhm.
the the lightning delay for 2 hours.
Isn't that crazy? That is one of the most remarkable games in Northview history.
Yeah,
For
I threw
those,
it.
for those, well, let me pause you. For those who don't know, I mean, this is really a well-known game in that rivalry, and this could only happen at Enterprise. So tell folks a little bit about that. What happened?
Well, we ended up having a 2 hour rain delay for lightning,
And at
and
that time, we were up what 21-7.
21-7.
Okay.
Uh, I actually had one of the three touchdowns off of a miscue, just getting the ball and doing what I do with it. We ended up going into the church for 2 hours, come back out. We played the third, it was right after halftime.
Mhm.
We played the third quarter. The clock goes out in the fourth quarter. I throw an interception.
Of course, it did.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. I throw an interception with about, I want to say about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and they score. I cannot exactly remember what happened, but I know they're telling us the time from the sideline,
Mhm.
and it's about 4 seconds on the clock, and they're down by one, and they get in field goal range to kick a field goal, and they win the game in the last 3 seconds with a field goal.
Now I got Cam Cobb is watching us. Cam, what do you remember about that game? Give us some comments. Well, guys, of course, I've got BJ Chitty with us, multi-star, multi-sport athlete, and we're just reliving some good memories, some not so good memories. I want to go back to that Smith Station game. Did you and Johnny Falk have a talk after the game?
No, we when we would catch up with each other, we would talk. But no, we didn't get to talk because he's actually a Trojan as well. So that family line is pretty deep as well.
Man, gosh, so many Cougars ended up being at Troy over the years. Many great
Absolutely.
athletes. Got a couple of folks here. I want to give you some shout outs. Vicky Benton Olive said you were also a great baseball player. Shane Cobb, Cam's dad, says that you were great at any sport you played and a really good kid as well. And Cam remembers you guys being stuck in the church for 2 hours and came out real slow. But
Yeah.
yeah, isn't it amazing what you can remember, the little things? And Revis Gertman, Enterprise principal. Revis, I promise you, my next trip to you, did I say Enterprise? Eufaula, my bad. Next time I'm in Eufaula, Revis, I promise you, bud, I'm gonna hit you up. We're gonna go get us some barbecue at Phil's. But he calls you guys, y'all are the men of Troy, of course.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about the last game against Dothan High. You remember this game?
Yes, sir.
Talk to us a little bit about it, because we all go through it our senior year. It's your last game against those scoundrels from across the city. Some of those guys are your buddies, but they're not your buddies that night.
Absolutely.
Now, let me pause that. Let's talk about pregame routine. It's a home game. When were the pep rallies? What was your routine like leading up to going to the stadium on those days?
I was kind of your more laid back, goofy guy, so I didn't never try to get too serious. I didn't never try to get too lackadaisical, so kind of like in the middle, quiet, listening to music type deal.
And who was your music back then?
Uh, the kids will laugh at me now. We were more Lil Wayne, Young Jeezy, because I was a rap guy back then.
Now, did that music keep you at a chill, or did that start to get your motor running a little bit?
It got me running a little bit. What I like to have is some adrenaline pumping. And to that first hit, I tell everybody I played scared. They don't believe me, but that kind of fueled my game, to the point where, hey, don't get hit.
Well, let's talk about the pregame routine. When were the pep rallies? Were they during the morning or in the afternoon for y'all?
Afternoon, usually it's 7th period, around the end of the day.
Okay, and did that conclude the school day and send everybody off?
It sent everybody home, yes, sir.
And then what did the ball team, what did y'all do?
We got ready for pregame meal. We would go eat pregame meal, and then we would come back and start getting tape and putting our uniforms
meal,
on.
where were those held?
In the cafeteria.
Okay. And then
Yes,
you
sir,
go back down to the gym or to the field house?
We went back. See, we didn't have a field house then. We went down to the gym.
Okay.
Where the locker room was, and we would put on our uniforms. Well, just our bottoms and our cleats, and we had walkthroughs.
Okay.
And after walkthrough, we would basically lay down and chill, sit around somewhere for about an hour, hour and a half, and then it was time to load the buses to head to Review.
Okay, and I remember those bus rides were very, very quiet rides. Everybody was just kind of in their headspace. Either they had music on or they didn't. Some guys even fell asleep on that, 30-minute ride or what seemed like 30 minutes. Now, you get to the stadium, and I want to talk about, because this is a commonality that we all have, is in the home team locker room. When we were playing, it was directly under where the band and the student section was.
Yes, sir.
And that was starting to fill up. And by the time the final talk and pregame prayer and pregame talk was going on, it was so loud above us. It got everybody really it really got you going. Could you hear that? Did that work for you guys at all? Or did you kind of just tune that out?
Yeah, to be honest, people ask me about memories all the time, and I'm just like, I can tell you bits and pieces, but as far as the game, I probably tuned myself out. You know, it was always, hey, just go out here and do what you've been doing since you were little, that you learned in the street.
Yeah. Now, I meant to ask this earlier. When you're ninth and 10th grade and you're learning the system and you're learning what high school football is about, particularly on 6A, you're thinking, you're doing a lot of thinking because you're processing and you're learning your craft. By the time you're a junior and a senior and you've got all these games under your experience and under your belt, you're really more reacting as opposed to reading and thinking and that.
Absolutely.
Do you recall, and you being a gifted athlete, it probably came to you a lot quicker than it did most, but do you recall when it was that you became so comfortable with the position that you were able to now be a coach on the field? You're telling your linemen, you're telling your backs, your receivers, this is what I need you to do, or this is your responsibility, as opposed to you just thinking about what you've got to do, hoping everybody else does what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
When did that click for you?
Probably the second game of my junior year.
Mhm.
Basically, what my college coaches would tell me is the game slowed down for me.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
you learned everything you need to learn. You no longer having to guess what's going on. You see it, and everything you practice and the film you've watched, it tells you everything that's about to happen.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, a lot of football is basically seeing the play before it happens. I would visualize what was about to go on in my head before we ran any play we ran. I envision it happening basically.
Mhm. And BJ, that's a gift. And for guys like you who are natural athletes, you may not have fully appreciated it. For the rest of us who are, I would call the journeymen, the guys who really, and I'm not taking this away from you because I know you put in a lot of hard work. Don't misunderstand it that way.
So,
But not every athlete has that ability to visualize the play fully ahead of it going. You know, you process it so quickly that puts you just that much quicker ahead of the rest of the other 21 guys on the field.
yes,
And
sir.
that's a pure compliment to you and your athleticism and your ability to process. And that's what separates the average player from the above average or the great player. And that's, I know that your junior and senior year and getting into to Troy, you were able to do that. And that's what put you out there. So going into the second game of your junior year, it just clicked and you figured you could do it.
Yeah, after that first game, we kind of started slow against Robert E. Lee.
Mhm.
Uh, we came back the next game, and it was just like I said, everything had slowed down from. I got the first game out from up under my belt, and we just ran from there.
Now, with all of your experience, and now you've been out for several years, and I'm not going to call you an old man because you're far from it, but what was it? What does it mean to you now, looking back at your high school? And we hadn't even touched on baseball and basketball that much, but what is it that gives you pride to wear that jacket that you're wearing right now? I know you don't wear it all the time; you're wearing it for tonight, but
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
pride in that. What is it about being a Northview Cougar?
Oh man, just the people that came before me, being able to. I mean, it's gone now, but at the time, I was like, my kids will end up going to school here one day.
Mhm.
Um, just having that camaraderie we used to have back in the day, the guys I've been able to meet, the guys I've been able to play ball with, who have went on and become great businessmen, who become great fathers and great people.
Mhm.
Uh, just like we doing now, to be able to sit back with somebody and reminisce one day about what used to go on.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. Just playing sports does that. Playing sports brings multi generations of athletes together. Even though we played many years apart, we still have a lot of commonalities. I bet you and I have the same dislike. I'm not going to call it hatred because we're on this show. For Enterprise High School,
Whew.
and at
Yeah,
times for Dothan High School, and
yeah.
maybe
Oh,
Robert E. Lee and Sidney Lanier, and all of those programs. Now, what school gave you the most fits the years you guys played against them?
you said it off the bat. Enterprise High School.
Mhm.
I could not seem to most of the time, whether it was basketball, football, or baseball, I couldn't finish a game. I stayed hurt. I got my first concussion ninth grade in a JV football game playing safety.
Oh,
That
wow.
was the last time ever playing defense, by the way. Um, I got my first concussion. Then I like to, yeah, it was a bunch of stuff that went on. It was bad.
Yeah, Enterprise was always one of our toughest opponents. We finally beat them my senior year in football and in baseball. Baseball was my favorite sport. But let's talk about that for just a minute. Who'd you play baseball for at Northview?
I played the first 2 years, my ninth and 10th grade year, I played for Jason Abercrombie. My junior year, I did not play at all. I came back my senior year and we had Steve Garrett.
Okay. What was it about baseball? You said that was one of your first sports or your first loves. What was it about the game of baseball that really attracted you? What'd you like about it?
How hard I could hit the baseball. I don't know. It's just something that came natural. I don't know what it was about hitting the ball or seeing a pitch, or it just clicked. That was one sport I could. It clicked. I didn't have to think. I didn't have to go off of training. It clicked.
And what positions did you play?
Early on in my career, I played second and short, and sometimes first base. But as I got older, I moved to the outfield. I went to mainly center and right.
I suspect you had a pretty decent arm from the outfield as well.
Used to. I did.
Hey, we all used to, my friend.
Yeah,
we all used to. I'm not trying to make you feel old whatsoever, but I can see you feel it right now.
Yes, I need another shoulder.
Yeah, I threw a football the other day, and the guy was about 50, 55 yards away from me, and I said, "You're going to have to come on in." Hey,
Oh,
no
yeah.
way. No way. I got it about 40 good yards to him, and I was like, "I'm done. That's good."
Yeah, I actually train. I have two guys that I work with training, one out of Rehoboth and one right here in Northside now. But I can still throw the ball pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, just don't overdo it. Now, did you
Oh,
guys
no.
did you play your games at Northview on the campus, or did you play them at Westgate at Northside?
At Northcut,
Or Northcut, I'm sorry. Yeah.
you talking about baseball, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We played on campus. We definitely played on campus.
Yeah, I always wanted to. That was just a practice field for us back in the day. We played all our games at Northcut.
Oh no, we played all of them home.
Yeah, I would have loved to have played it on there, but that was back in the day. Beyond the left field, those batting cages were always there.
Okay.
And then beyond that was a nasty creek, and I don't know if it's still there, but it was initiation for the varsity to get thrown into that creek. Oh yeah, back in the day.
It's still there though. It's still there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about transitioning to Troy. You were a big man on campus at Northview. You were what I always call the big fish in a little pond. But you go to Troy, everybody's a big fish. Everybody can play. Everybody's an athlete. Yeah. Talk about how hard was that transition at Troy?
Understanding that, like you said, everybody is just as good, if not better than you are.
Yeah.
Because I always say at that level, your skill can only get you so far. Your technique and your discipline is what propels you in that sport. Especially
what positions did you play at Troy?
At Troy, I played receiver. I went strictly receiver.
And did you know that when you were being recruited?
Yes, they gave me the option. At the time, we had a quarterback. His senior year, he was a freshman coming up, but his senior year, he had threw 91 touchdowns down in Paducah, Kentucky.
Ooh.
So I was like, well, if I get out on the perimeter, I can get the ball.
So talk about that transition, because did you play any receiver in high school?
I played 3 games. My 10th grade year, I got to play 3 games of receiver. Every camp I went to, I played quarterback and receiver. The transition, it was basically starting over from what I knew or what I thought I knew to take the coaching and the technique that they taught me and just rebuild my trust to the game all over again.
Yeah. Now, when you got to Troy, were there any Northview, Dothan, or Wiregrass guys? I suspect there were a bunch.
Not really. You would be surprised. At one point in time, I was the only guy on the team from the Wiregrass area.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. I
it was.
thought traditionally the roster usually had several. I'm surprised.
And matter of fact, for the four and a half years that I was there, I probably can count on both hands how many guys came through from the Wiregrass. A lot of them will walk on.
Maybe at that time, maybe the coaching staff at that time just had a different philosophy than what I knew back in the day.
Oh yeah, we had a bunch of JUCO guys come in. We had a bunch of guys from out of state.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys from out of state.
Well, the program had really elevated itself through the 90s and the early 2000s by playing big time programs, Power 5 programs throughout the country.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that before we wrap it up. What was so great about playing ball for Troy and being in college and just on the next level playing?
At first, it takes some getting used to. My first two games actually, the first one against Clemson I ever played in, and the second one against Arkansas. And you're talking about 93,000 people in the stand.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a
little more than they pack into Rippue Stadium on a Friday.
Absolutely. So when we sitting here talking, if we about 2-3 feet away from each other, we can't even hear each other. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. The roar that goes on in a college stadium is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, what was that hit? What was that welcome to college football moment for you? Was that in a practice where an experienced linebacker said hello, or was that in a game? Or talk to us a little bit about that.
Believe it or not, we didn't even tackle the first 2 years in practice at Troy. And I asked Coach, I say, hey, well, how they gonna learn how to hit? He said if they didn't know how to, if they didn't know how to hit, we wouldn't have recruited them.
Wow.
So we basically saved a lot of the hitting for the games for the first couple of years that I was there. And I mean, and they were successful. They won 5 championships in a row, with 4 before we got there. Mm-hmm. But Clemson, first quarter, I was starting at the Z receiver slot.
I know where it's. Come on, keep telling it.
I ran a 3-step slant.
Uh-huh.
I took it a little too deep. Our goal is 7 yards. Once we get to 7 yards, get it flat. I took it about 9. Uh-huh. And safety comes down, and I couldn't drop the ball if I wanted to, because when it hit my hands, the safety pierced it between my body and his body, and he drilled me.
Did he get you did he knock the wind out of you, or did he just?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you're on national TV, so you got to get up.
Yeah, because everybody plus mama's watching.
Yes, mom's in the stands, so you got to get up.
Now, if it would have been my mom, well, first of all, I would have never been a receiver. But if it had been my mom, and I think she's watching right now, she'd have stood up, she'd have gotten the jersey number of that player, and she'd have found out where he lived and had words with him. Now, that's my mom. How did your mom handle the fact seeing her baby boy getting stuck like that?
Oh, my mom was different, to say the least. She was hardcore, and I get why now that I have kids. But she was tough on me. She showed me how to be a man. She showed me how to stand up. Mm-hmm. How to walk, how to throw, how to hit. She showed me how to be who I am today.
Wow.
And not taking nothing from my dad, because my dad was a great dad as well. Mm-hmm. But she was my guardian, so I was there with her every day.
That's awesome that you had her in the stands to watch those games. That's so cool.
Oh, she was there. If she could drive, she was coming.
Now, what I'm about to ask you, no athlete ever wants to get to this place in his or her career. But at some point, we know that our athletic career, our competitive athletic career, has to come to a halt. Whether you're in the pros, whether you're in college, high school, wherever it is, Father Time wins out every time.
Oh, yeah.
When was it for you that you knew it's time to move on to the next phase in my life. My athletic career is coming to a halt?
You don't see it when you're playing the game, and reality never really sets in. I have guys, buddies, still trying to play football and do anything to play, whether it's arena, whether it's AFL, NFL, they doing whatever it takes. I realized the year after I graduated from Troy, so about 2015, I was trying out for a lot of Canadian teams.
Mhm.
And I would go to tryouts and either pull a hamstring or strain a quad. And I was just like, man, I don't want to feel like this no more. It's a grind. People don't understand the grind that you have to put into playing the game of football, from the weights to the banging to the head hits to just it's a good game. I love it. It enthusiasms me, but it's a lot on the body.
Now, what your body can't do, your brain still wants to do.
Oh,
I get it.
absolutely.
I get it.
Absolutely.
How do you fulfill your competitiveness these days? As an ancient man of fast approaching 30 years of age, how do you feel your competitive spirit these
I
days?
still train, and one of my guys that I do train out of Rehoboth, he's a pretty good athlete. He goes to all the All-American combines, and he goes to a bunch of camps, and just seeing him be successful and seeing what he does on the field gives me a lot of joy, knowing that I contribute to his technique. I didn't contribute to his athletic ability, but I'm definitely give him the technique he needs to make it to the next level.
That's awesome. Giving back. And plus, with you teaching and coaching, I'm sure there are many, many ways that you feel it. Now, let's talk about pickup sports. Do you still play any rec ball or an older league or anything like that?
When I was coaching at Dothan, I actually tore my Achilles.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I went through surgery, rehab, and now I don't even walk fast. If it requires speed walking, I don't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know you keep busy with your landscaping business, so take care of yourself because I know you need your body.
Absolutely.
That. Oh, we got Brandon Brown. He comments, was always a great dual threat athlete along with a great coach. Proud to say he knows you.
Yes, sir. That's my guy.
Well, BJ, I sure appreciate you spending some time with me, getting to know you a little bit and hearing
Yes,
some of
sir.
your stories. So thank you for spending some time with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, guys, as we do every Wednesday night, we have some awesome conversations. It may be guys who came ahead of me. It may be players who I played with, or like BJ, we played the same position many years apart, but we're both Cougars. And we got there's a long lineage in there, 41 years of Northview sports and a proud football program. So thank you, BJ, for being with us. And thank you guys and women, everybody who watches us live, comments, or watches us later on. And as I tell each of my guests, BJ, on Facebook, we're trying to still grow our page here, or this group, and it's open to anybody who was a former player, coach, cheerleader, administrator, in the band, anybody affiliated with the program. We want to hear from them. We want them to join our group and share memories. So if you have pictures, videos, mementos you want to share, put it in there so everybody can see it. We've grown a lot in about a year and a couple of months, and I'm proud of this. We're going to keep doing these interviews every week. So thank you again, BJ, and everybody else. Hope you guys continue to be safe, and we'll catch you again next Wednesday night for Conversations with Cougars. Y'all have a good night.